Right, welcome to the Worker Dialogue, our weekly program where we discuss issues about workers in the country. We use this platform to inform workers, we use this platform to educate workers and to mobilize workers. And also we discuss issues so that trade union leaders are fully informed about the developments in the labor market. This week, we are blessed to have the most senior labor leaders in the country, and we are discussing a very topical issue. Workers are under siege from a reactionary government. We want to hear from the senior trade union leaders and administrators what is happening in the labor market and where we are and where we are going. This is quite an important topic that we want to cover today. I will not introduce the panel. I want them to introduce themselves. So I will start with the only lady in the panel, Comrade.
Thank you so much, Comrade Peter Gate Mutasa. My name is Taruvinka Florence Mucha. I'm the first Vice President of the Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions. And for those that didn't know, Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions was formed on the 28th of February, 1981. And in a few days to come, we'll be celebrating 40 years of championing workers' issues, protecting and advancing workers' interests as an organization. It has 34 affiliate members from different sectors of the Zimbabwean economy. Thank you for having me. Hello, viewers.
Thank you very much, Comrade Florence, the first Vice President of ZCTU. We are fortunate to have a very senior trade unionist, the only Secretary General of a federation that is in here. And I'll allow the comrade to introduce himself and briefly talk about the federation he comes from. Comrade Sham. May you unmute, Comrade?
Right. Am I clear now?
Yes, please.
Can you get me now?
Yes, Comrade.
You can hear now?
Yes, Comrade. We can hear you.
Thank you. Revolutionary salutations to you all. I'm Comrade Kenya Shamyarira, the Secretary General of the Zimbabwe Federation of Trade Unions. That was registered in August 1998, and to date we now have 37 national affiliate unions, and out of the 37 national affiliate unions across the economic divide of our country, we have the 16 that sits in the National Employment Council. and 27 are fully registered. The others, to make them 36, they are still undergoing the process of registering. We are basically a socialist class-oriented block of trade unions. And we sit in the TNF. We are also ILO accredited, and we've got a very cordial relationship now with our colleagues from the Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions. And I think that's the brief of what we are and what we stand for.
Thank you very much, comrade. And we are also fortunate we have got a president of teachers unions, Comrade Obert. May you introduce yourself?
Thank you so much, Comrade President. Revolutionary greetings, fellow panelists. Greetings to all citizens of the world who are following this program. I am Obed Masaraure, the National President of Amalgamated Rural Teachers Union of Zimbabwe, a candidate affiliate of Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions, and a full affiliate of the World Federation of Trade Unions. At Amalgamated Rural Teachers Union of Zimbabwe, we fight for pro-poor education and labor justice for education workers. It is great to be part of this panel. Thank you.
Wonderful, and thank you for coming and for accepting our invitation. We also have Comrade Majongwe. I'm not sure whether he managed to join, but if he has managed to join, may you please introduce yourself and your organization. May you unmute, Comrade Majongwe? Please unmute your mic. Comrade Majongwe, may you unmute your mic, please? Yeah, we have a challenge there with Comrade Majongwe. We can't hear him, but I think we will sort out the connectivity issues and we will hear from him. But for now, comrades, let's look at the ITCU report for 2020 on labor rights and labor justice. If the technical guys can put on the report so that we look at it, let's start from there. We also wish to start from the right. So there are 10 West countries for working people. And we have there Brazil, we have Cambodia, we have Bangladesh, we have Kazakhstan, we have Turkey. But unfortunately, comrades, we also have Zimbabwe. And there we are in the West 10 countries for working people. Let's go to page 18 and hear some of the examples why we are there in the 10 West countries for working people. If you look at some of the examples, they're quite sad stories to think about in an independent state which fought a bitter liberation struggle, which was anchored on the rights of citizens, including the rights of workers. If you look there, we were found to have increase in violence and dismantling of independent unions. And they had said the president of Zimbabwe Hospital Doctors Association, Comrade Peter Magombe, and president of Amalgamated Rural Teachers Union of Zimbabwe, Comrade Obert Masaraure, were kidnapped, beaten up, and subjected to torture. They had both denounced harassment and persecution by security forces. So that's where we are starting. We also need to look at the working conditions. I was looking at the Consumer Council food basket, family basket, and it's currently 22,975 Zimbabwean dollars. The minimum wage is only 11% of that. And for domestic workers, they are only earning 4% of that. If we go for the poverty datum line, which is 4,987, the minimum wage is even less than the poverty datum line for one person. And for a family of 5, it adds up to over 24,000, which means the minimum wage is only 10% of the poverty datum line. And if we go for domestic workers who are earning 900 Zimbabwean dollars, it's only 3 or 4% of that much. So we want to look at an assessment. What is your assessment of the current working conditions of workers? And if you compare with the past periods, what is your comment? Let me start with Comrade Shamyarira there.
Okay, thank you very much, compatriots. I think to begin with, we are in a very, very precarious position, both from the employers and the government. Workers are actually in a situation that is very unbearable since we took over independence. I think it might sound as an insult, but that is the brute truth. That yes, even though we have migrated from the Migrant Servants Act to the Industrial Conciliation Act and now to the Labor Relations Act, nothing seems to be buttressing what is expected of a human being as regards to a worker who in fact is the vanguard of the economy the world over. It looks like we are having systems that are embedded in self-profiteering, that are embedded in sectarian narratives. Because I don't see for a reason why now, 40 years plus down the line, when we have won the independence, under one revolutionary party that is still in government, that was saying we are taking up arms to free the workers and the peasants under the socialist mantra. And the socialist theory, socialist principles is that we must be able to share the means of production equally amongst ourselves. Hence, it resonates with the song that has been penned down by one of our revolutionary activists and trade unionist, Comrade Majongwe. When things are good, it must be good to all of us. When it's bad, it must be bad to all of us, in government included. But now we have seen that independence, yes, is there, but for sectorial groups, elitist groups that are heavily embedded in politics, workers are still continuing to be ruined. Workers are still continuing to be infringed on their basic fundamental rights, on their basic fundamental freedom, which is enshrined by the Act and even by the Constitution. They are only taken as tools of anything, a certain sectorial class. And you see that even though this government, particularly our government, recognize the freedom of trade unions, the freedom of association, but they want to stereotype it to meet and suit their own political agendas. That is, if they say we have investors, those investors, they will come, and when they come, they have nothing to prove worthwhile to the workers who they will hire, but they have to prove amongst themselves, the government and the investor, shunning even all the labor laws, shunning even all the collective bargaining agreements that we might put in place. So I think in short and in brief, we can't continue to keep on quiet when this monster continues to devour amongst ourselves as a citizenry. This country is for all of us, and we are all born of a woman, and no one is just dropped from heaven. So we need to organize ourselves as we are doing now through these platforms. And it should not just end in rhetoric speeches, but I think it's high time now we must confront those that are actually belittling us, those that are actually infringing us, those that are actually denying access to freedom of the Zimbabweans.
Thank you very much, Comrade Sam. Let's wait there. We are going to come back to the practical issues of the way forward. But thank you for that comparison with the colonial era. Madam Comrade Florence, you are organizing across various sectors. And what is the condition of the worker today?
Thank you so much, Prez. But before I go into your question, allow me to first say I totally agree to what Comrade Shanu has just said. Workers are the backbone of every economy and not the blame, neither are they terrorists. And workers' rights have to be respected. When we are speaking of workers' rights, we are speaking and referring to those that have been negotiated, those that have been agreed, and even those that are given. And these issues of principles of freedom of association, I cannot labor myself much to speak about them. But let me hasten to the question that you have given me. The current situation and working condition in Zimbabwe is totally deplorable and pathetic, just to say. We are now fraught by decent work deficits all over. No social dialogue, poor salaries all over, no social security, no respect of workers' rights, and loss of workers' employment has now been the order of the day. And even with this pandemic, it's now a scapegoat for most employers to retrench workers arbitrarily without even sitting down with them to speak to the issues that they think they are worthy to retrench workers in Zimbabwe. The pathetic part of it is workers are continuing to wallow in poverty, and with the austerity measures that are continuing to be mentioned, it's a pity that we have the government that thinks workers are living lavishly already. When we are suffering, left to die, maybe by virtue that they are affording, they think that the rest of workers are affording. The situation on the ground is not known by those in authority. Hence, the austerity measures and continued arbitrary and knee-jerk policies that are impacting worst on workers. Thank you, Prez.
Right, thank you. It looks like a sorry state everywhere. We are hearing our senior labor leaders talking about the situation of the worker, and they are all saying it's terrible. I want to hear from Comrade Obed. You have been very active fighting for a living wage. You even had a caravan from Tare to Harare working for that cause. What is the current situation of a teacher, and what does it look like in comparison with what teachers used to be in the past?
Thank you so much, Comrade President, for giving me the opportunity. Unfortunately, I'm experiencing a very bad connection as usual, so I missed part of your question, but I will respond to what I gathered. If I miss anything, please raise a follow-up question. You'll be shocked to realize that as I'm speaking to you right now, teachers and other civil servants just learned through online circulars that 2.5% of their salaries are now being forcibly deducted towards a fictitious government employees mutual saving fund, a fund they have no control over, a fund which was unilaterally created by the government itself to milk the hard-working civil servants who are already underpaid. So this is the nature of the status in the civil service. We still have an employer with powers to impose unilateral decisions on us. This is the same employer we obviously is coming up with the garrison shops and everything without consulting the workers. But they are deducting funds from already underpaid workers. Teachers at the moment and other civil servants are earning way below the poverty line. For example, the teachers who just got their salaries, they advised me that they just got 17,000 RTGS. We just got 17,000 RTGS as a monthly salary. Our colleagues who are also government workers in the security sector obviously are getting more. We don't want their salaries to be reduced, but we simply want our salaries, obviously, the value of our salaries to be restored to the pre-Mutuli era, to the pre-austerity measures era, where we used to earn at least USD 510. But why do we continue to earn these salaries It is because the current regime is managed to sustain the repressive laws of the colonial era, but just giving them different names. You see that when during the colonial era, when they had the Industrial Conciliation Act, we might not have the same naming and framing today, but when that particular act was only allowing the white people to create labor unions, it is now apparent that this current government only allows clickers of the system to have trade unions within the civil service. No wonder why the existence of Amalgamated Teachers Union of Zimbabwe and other progressive movements is criminalized, because they are using the same piece of legislation using different context and naming. When the colonial master used to have the Unlawful Organization Act, which was used to ban other organizations, it's apparent that it is not declared, but some of our organizations are almost banned, because if you are abducted, tortured for simply demanding a living wage, if your offices are broken into by state agents at least 3 times a month for simply standing for the workers, it is apparent that this particular government doesn't recognize you and you are an unlawful organization in there. And they have stated in the public domain that we are unlawful organizations, and they give us all sorts of names. In the same manner that the colonial government would invoke the Emergent Powers Act, this same regime, as it did in January 2019, can invoke that particular act, but it's undeclared. They will drag anyone and everyone before the courts, facing different charges. They will close all democratic space and ensure that we don't have freedom of movement, freedom of association and assembly. In as much as the colonial master would use Loma today, they can use MOPA to curtail even gatherings of our own labor organizations. Obviously, MOPA will give them the green light to organize and meet, but obviously the administrative conduct, those who will be administering MOPA will ensure that even trade unions are not allowed to meet, obviously at times giving COVID-19 as an excuse. The civil service is much worse than the private sector at the moment. Why? Because our ancillary laws are still not compliant to the dictates of Section 65 of our Constitution. You go through the public public service regulation, you realize that collective job action is still banned, whereas it is provided for in the Constitution. The laws which are governing as a civil servant still banned that. If you are going to look at the Public Service Act itself and the public service regulation, forming and joining the trade union still have to go through rigorous processes, which obviously the state has really do more of registration than recognize your existence as an independent autonomous union. So if we are going to be saying why are we suffering at the moment, it is because we are living in a very repressive environment. What is the legislative framework is not compliant with the supreme law. The administrative conduct, the customs, the practices, and everything are still not compliant with the supreme law in Section 65.
Right, Comrade Robert.
Apartheid regime type of government to ensure that the workers are completely left out from the feeding cake. The feeding cake is now a prison of the looting class. I think this is the state of the civil service at the moment, particularly teachers from which I come.
Right, Comrade Robert, thank you very much. I want to come back to you and say you have depicted a very sorry state about the current state of civil teachers. In your own view, the previous regime, the previous Mugabe regime, and the so-called new dispensation, what has been your experience between the two?
Okay, like I said earlier on, I might miss the whole question because my connection is low. But if you want me to compare, you said comparison between Mugabe regime and Nangapa regime. Is that so?
Yes. Yes,
okay.
yes,
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much. I will remember when I was still a student, I saw teachers in the collective of them under the leadership of one Chikore marching in the streets of Harare to deliver a petition. They were in their numbers, I think there were over 1,000 of them, and I never heard of anyone being arrested. The next day, I even saw the era of quoting the demands of the teachers clearly what they were demanding from the government of the day. Today, when we try to hold such protests, just walking very far away from power in Mutare, we were arrested 10 times on our way to Harare. But we were not threatening power in any way. We were just trying, and we were very few, just wanted to deliver a petition. So I would say freedom of assembly then, Adam Mugabe using this example, it might have been much better. Then obviously you would go back to 2002 where there was an attempt at the harmonization of the labor laws, which was obviously at the end of the day was done away with. There was a little bit of an improvement, but then at the end of the day, we now have a new era under this new dispensation where even the salaries that we are earning, under Mugabe I used to earn 520, but now I earn in less than $50 if I don't add up COVID-19 allowance. So I used to earn a little bit, a decent allowance, a decent salary under Robert Mugabe. Even teachers managed to buy a house, to buy cars, buy the range of things. But right now they're selling anything and everything they got under Robert Mugabe. I was never abducted under Robert Mugabe. I was never abducted under Robert Mugabe. The ways that I went through was to be arrested and be thrown and go through some trial. It was not fair, but I did not spend as many days again in prison than I spent Adam Nangafa. Pre-trial detention under Madam Nangafa can exceed for more than 20 days. You'll be denying bail, and I've seen others exceeding for 70 days. Recently, this student in the Alarimo, I spent over 20 days myself in 2019. But under Robert Mugabe, the most that I spent in a pre-trial detention was 4-5 days. So we've seen the weaponization of the law. We've seen the erosion of all rights. We've seen the complete disregard of the Constitution by the government, and we've seen the relegation of the workers to poverty, and we've seen a ruling class which no longer cares. In as much as Robert Gabriel Mugabe will use government, at least we would show some sympathy. You would come down at Robert Mugabe International Airport and he declared that we can get honors which are 100% of their salary, even after the amount of so you see the attempt to go back to Gutaru Shinji was still there, but now there's no one cares. The Gutaru Shinji has been disregarded. The laws are disregarded. We now have a mafia style of government. And ensuring that everyone is Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Mugabe era was bad, but you are acknowledging that at least there was something for workers. I want to go to Comrade Shamyarira. You have been involved in the National Democratic Revolution for a long time, and you know some of the things that some of us do not know because of age as well, and your level of activism in that front. I want to understand all this you are hearing from various panelists. In your view, what has led a former revolutionary movement to lead one of the most reactionary governments that we have, even if you go down south, if you go Botswana, Namibia, in the SADC region, Zimbabwean is leading the most reactionary government in as far as state labor relations are concerned. What has led to that? And also, you have obviously read in the press the Daily Maverick expose. What are your comments on that?
I think, thank you. Comrade Masaraure has just tried to distinguish the two eras. But I think from our own understanding, because we are also part of this revolutionary trend, we want to categorize it into scenarios. We have revolutionaries who came, the Mugabe team, whom we would call liberal autocrats. And now we now have the other group that is in now. I mentioned the name, but that is in now, whom we might want to call diehard autocrats. These are the people that have got a militaristic narrative way of doing things. And when we say militaristic narrative way of doing things, is that, you know, in military, it's either you are told, Corporal so-and-so, do this, yes, sir. And no question, no what you do that. And these people, they take that narrative of militaristic narrative to the entirety of the nation, workers included, employers included. Hence, if ever you try and say this policy is not in accordance with the trend of our revolution, you are labeled a reactionary force, you are labeled a person who is not supposed to be seen existing. You have to be incarcerated, or you have to be silenced once and for all, or removed from the position where you are speaking from. So the Mugabe time was better, because you would see, as we evolved from the Industrial Conciliation Act to the Labor Relations Act, Mugabe, as far as we know, he was a devout socialist student. So at times he was baptized with the spirit of sharing the means of production. He was then corrupted by the upstarts who joined him, the looters who said, no, chef, do this. Hence the beginning of the Wheel of the scandal. Mugabe was not entirely involved. But now we have got a situation whereby the very highest office is involved in each and every scandal. So now workers, this is why 3 days ago, you saw one of the spokespersons of the highest office saying, so and so, let's see to you are not going to be in the NASA board. NASA is a tripartite alliance body that is formed by workers from government, private, and the employers. All of our members, they are levied compulsorily, they put their money there. And where your money is where your collective thought and where your collective narrative must be buttressed. Now, if one of the parties says, we must only do things on our own, who are you to say that? Because here, Comrade President and the rest of the panelists, let's not continue to talk about certain things. Let's talk real things so that we don't waste time. This is a scourge amongst us, and this is the beginning. At one time, you saw NASA board arbitrarily dissolved without consulting worker constituents. Now, we are already given a hint by a spokesperson. But one thing that I would want all of us, because we are the people that are concerned, we are their leaders, we speak for them. When this young man was saying ZCTU is not to be involved in the NASA board next time, was he speaking this as an individual or as the presidential spokesperson? If he was speaking on his capacity as the presidential spokesperson, it means you, me, all of us, we must seek audience with His Excellency. Because one, His Excellency, he is there through the ticket of ZANU-PF, a revolutionary party, which said we are fighting to emancipate workers and peasants. Now where is that mantra deviating? And who is deviating it? Is it him? Is it the party? We need to understand. Because when we see His Excellency, we are seeing as the head of state and also the first secretary of the ruling party, ZANU-PF. So these autocrats in the government who want to continue to profiteer through racketeering the masses, workers and peasants, on the pretext of saying, because I'm closer to His Excellency or I'm closer to the government is only viable and is only feasible when it is closer to the workers and the peasants, because we are the voters, we are the electorate. So that's another angle which I would want all of us to take stock. The kind of government, because I'm still answering the question that it's totally a reactionary element that is now having handlers who have nothing to do with workers, we have nothing to do with this, but only profiteering through making what I would call fringe and stingy deals with the conglomerates, and some of them they are just used as middlemen. And this now has come to the point that we have been provoked, and we must now stand and confront. And on that position, you colleagues, all of us who are in the panel, we need to understand George Charamba, who gave him that authority to say this labor institution is not going to be in the NASA board. Who is he? We have got the Minister of Labor, who chairs the TNF, who also superintends the parastate of that. So he is no longer able to take stock of the activities that are being done by other alliance partners, only to take the person of George Charamba, a presidential spokesperson. And it is the same George Charamba who was the presidential spokesperson of Robert Mugabe. If Robert Mugabe was taken out of office to restore legacy, and you still bring in the same person again to be a spokesperson of the one who wants to restore legacy, and he's now murmuring all this shambles, all this hogwash, we need to confront them. Let me wait, because I'm getting agitated.
Thank you, comrade. And I can feel the revolutionary spirit hovering around. We are liberated as the trade union, and we speak our mind. We speak on behalf of the workers, and we speak truth to power. So I like it when I meet the revolutionary comrades here, and we speak what is hurting us, what is hurting the workers' movement. Vice President Florence, last week we were looking at the Daily Maverick report, and there was something that was striking, that in a stroke of one deal, these lost 20% when Sakunda was paid. And we felt it as workers. We lost that. That money was lost from workers' income. Workers' incomes, workers' pensions were eroded by 23%. I want to come to you and ask about that, but also specifically to ask what is the most critical issue for workers now, and how does that issue unite all of us as workers, and also unite workers and the citizens, the communities that we live in.
Thank you so much, Press, for that. The most critical issue, as we start with, is the critical issue of salaries. Salaries that are being pegged in other TGS when the market is demanding US dollars. That is what, in the area where we are supposed to engage and unite as workers for starters, because the disparity of this from the post-independence to date is still the same, where we have a debate between management and the shop floor workers. And it's unfortunate that even on the tripartite, the business part, they are demanding their goods services in US dollars. But when it comes to the meetings, they stick to Zimbabwean dollars. That's not justice. That's slavery. So that's the most issue and the area that we have to unite about as workers in Zimbabwe. And I think goes further to the issue that you're speaking about, Press. Like what Yami has just rightfully said, the problem first with many African countries, especially from revolutionary governments, is that they have been swayed away from the revolutionary ideological standing, to become the confront of bourgeoisies that are there to protect their own interests. They indicate left and they turn right. Corruption has been the center stage of all those issues, but no one has been put to book to date. The issue of corruption is continuing and no one is accountable for it. In as much as we are speaking about these issues, but the powers that be seem not to look at those issues. We are seeing them, maybe because they are education and they are lavish living, unlike us workers who are dying in poverty. Issues are affecting us workers and they are affecting the economy at large. Sanctions are there, but the main sanction that we are imposing on ourselves is illicit financial flows, is illicit, illegal gold partners that are not accounted for, is the issue of corruption that is happening even within our own NASA, where we are putting in our monies. And now today we are told that we are not supposed to be part of NASA. Where our money is where our heart, and we want corruption and corrupt people to be dealt with according to the law of Zimbabwe. Selection rule of law should be stopped. Whoever does anything should be accountable of it. No matter you're in power, no matter you are a worker, if you deal in corrupt activities, accountable for your activities. We don't want a rule of law that protects those that are in power as they continue to push us in poverty as workers in Zimbabwe. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much. You see, all of us, all of you guys are raising very important issue. And Shepard Dingandu there says, you know what divides us is much smaller than what unites us, and we must we must confront the big elephant in the room. And I like it when we hear, because there's an urge to divide workers on the basis of political affiliation, which we are not. Even political affiliated. We don't go in a supermarket and use a political card to buy bread, to buy soap, to buy sugar. We use our payslip. And on the production line doesn't know MDC, doesn't know Ndu, doesn't know Mavambo, doesn't know ZANU-PF. We all produce the same. And this is encouraging when we hear comrades from the public sector, comrades from ZFTU, comrades from ZCTU, clearly identifying that one issue that unites us, in which we are focused on. For the government to call us terrorists, for the government to call us reactionaries, when we are simply saying we are hungry, I think such a government should be a government of the people and for the people. So thank you, comrades. But let's narrow down. The time is moving. Let's narrow down to what workers want to hear from us. And I'll ask you to be very brief, maybe 2 minutes, because we still have three segments. And so we want to look at what are the avenues for workers to attain or change. We have complained enough. We have identified the problems. What must be done for us to attain social progress, prosperity, and freedom? I want Comrade Obed to start.
Thank you so much, Corporate President, for the opportunity. I think the working class, for us to get to prosperity, we should be agreed that we have to be marching towards the national democratic revolution to be advanced. And how do we advance it? First of all, we have to exhaust lawfare. We can't run away from lawfare. We have to engage in a rigorous process of pushing for the realignment of our laws to be in tandem with the dictates of Section 65, so that at least we have room for collective bargaining, we have room for collective job action, and obviously space to fight, a democratic space to fight. Second, but we can't run away from the imperative of using Jambanja as a way of getting what we want. As a class, we have to unite the workers across board, the working class across the board. We have to unite, and then we have to be holding this government accountable through Jambanja. We don't have an option, but also thirdly, to go to collaborative initiatives with international trade unions who can support our cause, give us solidarity. But more importantly, this is time where we now have to think of also engaging in interclass alliances. We are the working class, but we know Zimbabweans are suffering across the board. Even the middle class at the moment is also suffering, because with the state itself is isolated itself, state itself is primitively accumulating and extravagantly spending. So even the middle class, we have to collaborate with them, come together, unite. But for us to be able to get there again, we need to engage in mass education of our working class, for them to appreciate this particular role that we are trying to define. Then we can be able to moving on. And it is more important that we understand the nature of the enemy. To raise that particular question earlier on, why did they depart from the revolutionary agenda which they went to war for? If you listen to Robert Mugabe sometime in the early 90s, he said, in ZANU-PF, we now have a group of workers who are working hand in hand with big capital. They are blocking our efforts to achieve the regime. And those people, I think most of them managed to get these contacts through the military when the military was integrated in the intelligence. And I think even the incumbent president was part of the intelligence system, working hand in hand with the likes of Ken Flower. So this is when they entered into big networks with the rogue elements of the ex-rebels. And now they learned the art of looting from these ex-rebels, and they now have these big looted resources to protect. And they went on to loot even beyond Zimbabwe, the DRC. And now when we see we use 3 billion of our resources towards looting, we know who is taking the money. So now understanding that we are dealing with a mafia of looters, it is important also that we strengthen our solidarity system. It's also important that we don't do we don't go it as individuals, but go it as a collective so that it becomes difficult for them to isolate and crush us. I thank you.
Thank you. The looting class is coming together. It's looting collectively, and the labor working class must. Thank you for that. And Comrade Florence, what are the avenues and what must be trade unions and workers do urgently for us to reverse this situation?
Thank you so much once again, Praise. I think it's very important for workers in Zimbabwe to unite at this time and moment and focus on issues affecting them as workers, regardless of political affiliation, like you rightfully said. We must unite to shun even multiplicity of trade unions that weakens us, because the government is disguising under with the freedom of association, having multiplicity of unions start and evaluations, all in the name of multiplicity and freedom of association. So we should shun that as unions. We should unite, because in numbers we will conquer. Freedom of association, yes, we want it, but not to divide us, because we are stronger together as workers. And as a labor union, let's unite now. And the time is now for us to unite. None but ourselves can liberate ourselves from what is happening in Zimbabwe. They will always say nothing for us without us. Where are we? What are we doing? How are we doing ourselves? How are we allowing them to divide us? So let's push forward the issues of workers so that we stand for what we want until it is achieved. The fact that we are not being consulted, Press, it means that they are totally doing everything against us. Because if they want to do things according to what we want, they should consult us and let us know we are the creators of work as workers, and therefore we demand our respect from the government and the business. We refuse to be tolerated as the last hope. We refuse to be taken like people who don't think we're exploiting our labor. So workers in Zimbabwe, let's unite, let's fight as a one front, let's speak to issues that are affecting us. Let's allow us ourselves as workers speak to issues that are of our concern. They will come with different tactics to divide us, but it's not freedom of association as it stands. It's a way of allowing us to fight against each other as we multiply, as we have more unions and the density reduces. As it stands, it is my understanding that we now have a new federation by the name of Apex. Yes, Apex is a union as far as we are concerned. And in comradeship, we have been allowing to go with them even in TNF. But as it stands, it means we have parted ways. Why I say we have parted ways is because you cannot allow yourself to be put at the forefront of any other in Zimbabwe. No worker is important. No organization is important. The workers in Zimbabwe first. So as we speak of fighting this pandemic that we are faced with of salary erosions, let's speak to issues that are going to liberate workers so that our wage, our buying power can be restored once again. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you very much, Comrade VP there. And you raise a very fundamental issue. I want that we must unite and fight back. It's time to fight back. We have spoken with government. I want Comrade Shamyarira, and before you touch on the issue about what must be done, especially I want you to touch on especially how does labor build the broad alliance? You are aware that in the early days of the liberation struggle, the fighters soon realized that they cannot go against Chairman Mao's wisdom that the power of the fish is in the water, and they needed a broad front, they needed peasants. We are talking about issues that are affecting workers, but also tobacco farmers are already complaining about payment in Zim dollars. Informal sector workers are also complaining. The unemployed are also facing the same challenges. So I want you, Comrade Sham, to tell us how can the labor movement form a broad united front so that we deal with these issues. But you also need to touch briefly on the impasse in the tripartite negotiating forum, as you are the only Secretary General who is around in the tripartite negotiating forum, and what workers should know.
Thank you very much, compatriots. I think one thing that unites us as workers, as a broader alliance, even historically, is the issue to do with the means of production. Means of production is not those that are being produced in factories. It starts from the peasant's house. We have got cows, cattle that you use to plow, cows that you milk. And if one government comes and say you can only have 2 cows and 1 ox, that you have been deprived of a means of production. So this is why this broader alliance will forever, as long as men on earth, continue to unite workers and peasants. But now we have these governments that thinks that they themselves are there to set a roadmap for workers and peasants, and forgetting that they themselves are also human beings who are part of the society. So our mantra is that whoever is trying to infringe a peasant, a worker, on the means of production must be confronted. And that revolutionary ethos must bind us forever. And we are not saying we are going to snatch things from those that have. No, we are only saying we must share things equally, as the song penned by Majongwe reads. Now, what we need to do now, it's simple. We have got a legislated framework called the TNF. And the TNF does not mean government, MCOS, and Ministry of Labor. TNF means government, labor, and business. And we must participate in that platform on an equal footing. You don't come in the TNF with your jacket of a minister, or with your jacket of a vice president, or with your jacket of an employer of a CEO. You are coming there as a councillor who is there to represent the interests and the narrative of the constituency where you are coming from. Since it is now a legislated framework, we must utilize it to the maximum capacity, to the extent that whoever misfires within the orthodox of the narrative of the entirety of the TNF in terms of infringing the other partners or disrespecting of, must be taken to book legally. And we must start now. We must take stock of each and every constituent who is part of the TNF, fairly, without fear or without any political inclination, and without any power behind or without any handler behind. You don't come to the TNF as an operative, because if you want to come to the TNF, because operatives are already represented by government. Business, you are represented by business. The labor, you are represented by ZFT and ZFTU. And it is now incumbent upon us, comrades, to utilize this thing. If it is not working, we cannot be crybabies. We must take those that are hampering TNF not to come to full throttle to come to the full gear. We must take them legally. If it means us grouping ourselves, going to the office of whoever is saying TNF must not operate to the full gear, let it be so. If we are to be incarcerated from that angle, let it be so. But TNF must be there, because we can't continue to play around with the citizen of Zimbabwe saying, we have put this blueprint, we have put this legislation, we have put this roadmap, only to find that it's a time for a breathing space for the sharks and hawks to maneuver other tactics and strategies of continuing to loot at the expense of the workers and peasants. We can't continue to do that. Right now, as we speak, the TNF is dead. And we are to blame, you comrades, you comrade Mutasa, myself, comrade Florence there. We have got a deadlock. And the deadlock is not demanding a political space from labor. It is only saying, let's have a methodology that ascribes to the negotiations of salaries and wages linked to the US dollar. Since you, the government, have already dollarized everything, you can't hide behind the finger. Even the toll gates, everything. And then now you want us to continue to be paid in RTGS. And you know that even the employers, as Ms. Comrade Florence alluded, that their products, their produce, they are all being sold in US dollars. And you still expect a worker who is getting 2,000 RTGS to go and buy bread, to buy milk, and to send kids to school. What kind of naivety is that? That's absurd. And this must be tackled by none other than ourselves, because we are the voice of the voiceless. Let's not be cowards, comrades. Let's not try to please somebody. Those who want to be, those who want to be MPs, it's still, you are still at liberty, but never forget where you come from. I, for one, I come from the workers and the peasants. I even contested, and I will still contest. Even the highest position of the president, I'm allowed. This is our country. No one is above God. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a very lively discussion, and I pick one fundamental issue there. Let us not be cowards. We are the Benjamin Burombos of today. We are the Joshua Nkomos of today. I was reading the trade union history, and it is a sad indictment that under colonial rule, after there were widespread unrest, strikes, general strikes, a colonial government came up with the Howman Commission to look at the working class conditions of the black workers. And when we complain today in a supposed independent Zimbabwe, we are found in the colonial jails, using all the systems that the colonialists created. This is quite sad, and I like the point that you raised. Let us not be cowards. Let us not have any prejudices, ideological, political, or any other, whether it's craft and narrow-mindedness about protecting your sector and protecting your interests in your job. Let us be courageous and fight on. But gentlemen and lady, we are coming to the close. And I also forgot to point out that by 1973, there were 68 trade unionists in detention. So each time we see trade unionists in detention, it could be at Mashingo prison, in the Blueo, we always are reminded of the colonial regime strategies against the trade union, and this is a sad indictment. So we are coming to a close, and I'm asking you, comrades, to speak from the heart. I would want all of you to speak a minute or 2 minutes. Let's have 2 minutes. I want you to speak to the workers of Zimbabwe and say all this that we're talking about. You have said we need to be courageous, we need to fight on. We use both the legal strategies and also the power strategies. Comrade Florence, what is your message to the working class of Zimbabwe?
Thank you so much, Prez. I think there is nothing that I can emphasize more than the of in Zimbabwe. Let's unite and speak to these issues, because as it stands, in that government and business, they find each other always. But it's us workers who are continuing to divide ourselves over our affiliations, over different religions, over different sectors we are coming from. Let's unite and speak to our issues, and let's refuse to be put into a fighting battle by so-called freedom of association is just a disguise so that they allow to be many as possible and fight over what is not there, forgetting the key target that speaks to the welfare of a worker. And I think, Pres, it's important also say my word to business and government. To the business, happy worker is a very productive worker. As you are demanding your produces, as you're demanding your prices and goods and services in US dollars, so are we demanding our salaries in US dollars. We are the same that are coming from the communities as workers. We are the same that you are expecting to come and buy or pay for the services you're offering to us. How do we pay? How do we afford when there is a disparity of US dollar and Zimbabwean dollar? To the government, the workers are continuing to demand. We are demanding for a stable currency. What we want is the restoration of our buying power. We are only demanding a stable currency so that as workers in Zimbabwe, in a liberated country, we can be able to meet our demands. We can be able as women to buy the sanitary wear, which has gone way beyond our affordability. We are now resorting to even use papers here and there. We are even resorting to use clothes and wash afterwards. So we demand a stable currency. And also workers in Zimbabwe are continuing to demand for the respect of union rights. Human rights are union rights. We are demanding human rights to be adhered to the latter, and the respect of rule of law. We are also continuing to demand that there be a meaningful social dialogue, especially at the tripartite negotiating forum. As Comrade Shamu have rightfully said, we have engaged, we have put ourselves to the TNF because as unions, as workers, we believe in dialogue, but it's not yielding the result that we are expecting. We reach to a certain level and to find two groups only grouping to themselves, only to same issues of exploitation of labor. Let's have sincere dialogue. We are there as labor. We are keen to speak to labor issues. We are keen to speak to any issue that speaks to the development of the economic of Zimbabwe, that speaks to the development of the health sector in Zimbabwe. But what we want is see a dialogue. We want a dialogue that is going to be fruitful at the end of the year, because it's such a shame that to date, ever since we have engaged in the TNF, nothing materialized to date. Why are we wasting each other's time? So workers are not terrorists. We are not for putting out the government that is seated. We are only demanding for what is rightfully ours. We want to be heard. Workers are dying, are suffering. They can't even afford a 3-meal course. They are only afford a meal that is struggled to put on the table for their children to eat. Whereas we are continuing to see even a competition from the politicians of buying the latest 20 vehicles when citizens can't even afford to eat a regular and decent meal a day, only one. So our demands continue to be pushed forth, and as labor, we continue to put our demand. As Comrade Shamu says, it is also our plea that we want to meet His Excellency, because it is our understanding that our voice is not heard. What we are saying is not meeting to his ears, because those that have been subjected to talk to us, they are not taking our issues as they are. Workers are suffering out. So we speak to issues of workers' welfare, issues of workers' protection, issues of social dialogue. We are ready for sincere and fruitful dialogue as we push also for a demand of US dollars. We want to have a decent living in Zimbabwe as workers of Zimbabwe. Thank you so much. I've noted that the president is no longer with us and he is our moderator. And I as the vice president also to take it up. Comrade Shamu, can you just add your last words to what's happening and how you feel has to happen? Kindly also address to the business government and also a message to the workers and citizens out there? Can you unmute yourself?
So you can hear now. Is it okay?
Yes, over to you.
I think what we should do now, and I concur 100% with what we have just said, and this is our position as a Labour. What we must now do from this dialogue platform, it must be a continuous thing until we reach to our desired expectation. We must now come up with well-calculated workings. It is time we leaders must start to unravel and to unshackle the corridors of power. And when we talk of the corridors of power, we are not earmarking the office of His Excellency alone. We now need to see, we'll sit down, myself, Moyo, and Mutasa, to make sure that the next move, organized labor, ZCTU, ZFTU, we must meet with the Speaker of Parliament, Jacob Mutenda, because that's where all things start. This is where TNF has been passed to be as a legislation. Are his MPs taking stock of what is happening to each and every legislation that they approve, that they endorse? If not, then we've got redundant MPs. They must be removed and bring in competent people who are there to be savient MPs for the generality of the people of Zimbabwe, workers and peasants included. Then the next move, after meeting with the Speaker of Parliament, we have to see the Director of Intelligence together with the Director of Police, Commissioner General. We speak to them, guys, you are the securocrats. You are the people who provide security and give advice to His Excellency. What is your take to areas that infringe workers on 1, 2, 3, 4? Then we have to be very clear. And the press must be also involved in such dialogues. From there, we meet with His Excellency, because we have taken the position from the MPs and from his securocrats, head of departments, and then we talk to him, come up with positions. After coming up with positions as organized labor, we then ask for a labor inclusive conference that will then also invite, because we know business clandestinely, they are always together with these guys. They rub shoulders, they buy each other, they buy in, they buy out. So we will be having a clear narrative of where to go. If we don't do this, colleagues, it will end as pep talk shows. And we, and I for one, as a diet revolutionary cadre, I'm getting fed up. But I can't do a solitary revolution. Revolution needs all of us. This is why Mao told the workers, the peasants, that together we move, and we are like water. We are like fish swimming in the water. It involves everybody, everybody. So this is the time now, colleagues. We must also involve the informal sector leaders. We don't want to hear issue of sectarian, issue of clansism, issue of trying to divide people and workers on partisan lines or on tribal lines. No, we can't have that. Let's go. We know the people who are doing that. Let's meet with the Speaker, from the Speaker, Commissioner General, and Director of Intelligence. Leave the army aside, because in a true democratic country, the army must remain in the barracks. We don't have war here. We have got economic war, and we know the people who are qualified to address the issue of economy: workers, government, and employers. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Comrade Shamo. That was very profound. And I think as the closing shots, we all agree that trade unions world over are formed under the principles of freedom of association. And that principle only talks to non-interference, either by the government or external organizations, on workers' issues. Therefore, as we speak workers' issues, we are applauding all workers that are speaking to them, as we also speak for us not to be interfered as we speak of workers' issues in Zimbabwe. As you said, Comrade Sham, as Comrade Obed said, workers are the key factors of production in Zimbabwe, and Zimbabwe should respect workers' rights. In Zimbabwe, there should not be a class struggle, and they should not divide formal and informal workers in Zimbabwe. Over to you, Pres. I was just taking over since you were offline.
Right. So thank you very much, Comrade VP. I wish to thank all the panelists now. And we have come to the end of our program. It was very, very enlightening. I think there are many take-homes. The most important one is workers are suffering. This cannot go on. Workers must unite. We must fight the battle, none but ourselves. Nothing must be allowed to divide us. We are going to shun polarization. All workers united for one common goal. We have a message to the government of Zimbabwe as well. We are trade unions. We are not fighting for political positions. We are fighting for decent wages, decent working conditions, and this is a cause
and this is a cause that we will not shy away from. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and I will allow the technical team to play again Comrade Raymond Majongwe's song there as we end our program and start working on what we've been discussing here. Thank you very much. Shinga mshandi shinga, Tina Sebens Tina, Aluta continua.
Aluta.
Kana mari kapira naichiwane chikwa chikapira nachowane kana mari kapira naichiwane chikwa chikapira nachowane kapira nauwane ndiko kuti nyika yedu ibudirire, ndiko kuti Zimbabwe ikurumire, ndiko kuti nyika yedu ibudirire, ndiko kuti Zimbabwe ikurumire. Kana zvikaoma, kana zvikanda, kana zvikaoma iri, kana zvikanda, mafuta akapera, kana uwanikwa, shuga ikapera, kana yowanikwa, shuga ikapera iri, kana yowanikwa, makecho akauya, kana uwanikwa, mbeu ikapera, kana yowanikwa.